We'll start off with the ISO presentation with Chief Owens.
Good morning. We're pleased to announce that the Winston-Salem Fire Department has improved our public protection classification, or more commonly referred to as PPC, improved our public protection classification issued by the Insurance Services Office, or ISO, to a Class 2. Previously, the fire department was classified as a Class 3 in our last inspection in 2006. Only 2% of municipal fire departments in North Carolina are classified as a Class 2, and nationwide that number is 4% that have been able to reach that level of achievement. ISO provides information about risk to insurance carriers and other companies. They look at the fire department, the emergency communication system, the water supply system, and the community risk reduction programs that the fire department has in place. According to ISO, a Class 1 PPC represents an exemplary fire suppression program, while a Class 10 indicates that the fire suppression program does not meet the minimum criteria for ISO. Beginning on June the 1st, this improved classification will become effective. The Winston-Salem Fire Department would like to remind folks, home and business owners, to check with their insurance agents to make sure that they know about the improved classification so that they can make sure that they are receiving the best insurance premium rates. So at this time, thank you, and at this time I'd like to call up Chief Mitchell.
Good morning. I'd like to talk to you today about fire stop canisters. One thing that we feel like is very important in our community, and you'll see in just a minute from some of our data why we feel that's a need here in Winston-Salem. Some of the national studies out show that cooking fires is a major problem. If you look at these stats that's on the screen, it shows that more than 43% of all fires are cooking related. 38% of those involve injuries, and 16% of them will also involve deaths. Most of the time it's related to fires that have been left unattended. Someone leaves a pan of grease on the stove, or they're cooking chicken or what have you, and they walk away for a moment and forget about it. And typically these occur on top of the range. They're not happening in microwaves or in the stove. They're happening on top of the range. Just some safety tips there. Just always remember, never leave a fire unattended. You always want to make sure that you're in the kitchen and present with it. If you do have to leave for any reason, make sure you set a timer to remind you to come back. A lot of times we hear from folks that have kitchen fires is that they got distracted, they went and watched television, they went to take a nap, or they answered a door, and they come back and they had a major fire in their kitchen area. Here in Winston-Salem, our numbers are actually a little bit higher. When we looked at all our building fires, 50% of them were cooking related. The injuries were about the same as the national statistics at 39%. And fortunately, we haven't had any deaths related to cooking fires during the last 4 years. We have had some that dates back further than that, but in the last 4 years, going with the national study, we haven't had any deaths related cooking fires. This is something that is steadily on the rise. When we looked at the data for the last 4 years, 3 out of those 4 years, the numbers have increased. 1 year it kind of remained the same or steady, but out of those 4 years it has risen typically. What we can do to prevent or mitigate fires, the 5 things that we always want to look at in the fire department and in prevention when we're looking to mitigate or prevent a problem is the 5 E's. Education, engineering, enforcement, economic incentives, and emergency response. And emergency response is always the last thing that we want to have to do. When we're looking at cooking fires, the two main things that we want to use out of these 5 E's, and anytime you're looking at preventing or mitigating a situation, you could use all these, one of these, or a combination of these. But for cooking fires, the two main things that we look at is engineering and education. When we're talking about cooking fires, again, education is all across the board, from very young children, like you see in the picture here, to our seniors. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of cooking safety, with kids, making sure they stay at least 3 foot away from the stove when you're cooking. Things not to do: never, pick up something that's hot off the stove, or be close to it, or give your parents distance when they're cooking. And then for older adults, like I talked about earlier, is never leaving it unattended, keeping combustibles away from cooking surfaces. One of the other E's, and that's what we mainly want to speak of today, is the engineering part of the 5 E's. And one simple solution, now these won't prevent fires, but they can help to mitigate or lessen the damage, is kitchen fire stop canisters. And the way these work is if you have a typical grease fire or a fire on the range itself, the canisters go up attached to the vent hood, or they can also attach under a microwave, and I'll show you that in a couple other slides. If you have a grease fire, what they have has a fuse that's connected to the bottom of that canister, and they're not temperature rated. If it gets up to a certain temperature, they're not automatically going to go off like a sprinkler head. That fuse actually has to be ignited before they'll actually discharge their chemicals, as you see here. So you don't have to be present. There's nothing that you have to do to activate these. You could be in another room or whatever. And one good thing about it is when they do go off, they're about as loud as a firecracker. You would hear it if you were sleeping in another room. You would hear it when it discharged. Again, they're also designed for microwave units. You got your typical range units like the picture before, and they have units that are also designed to go under microwaves. They're very simple to install. Your standard unit like this, when you purchase them, they come in a pair, and all you have to do is place them between 2 eyes on the burner. You'll have 2 per stovetop, and they just go between the two eyes. Some of the highlight of these products, again, they work independently. You don't have to do anything for them to operate. They have a pretty long shelf life. Typically, they last 5 to 6 years. Environmentally friendly, easily, after they discharge or whatever, you can easily clean them up. It's not going to hurt you to be in a room if one went off as far as breathing any type of chemical that's not safe. They're affordable. Typically between $30 to $75. The standard unit is a lot cheaper than what the microwave unit is, because there's a lot more to the microwave unit. And especially when we look at damage that a cooking fire can cause, they're considerably cheaper than what you'd have to pay on, for your copay for insurance or something like that, or the damage that it could cause in your kitchen. And they have been tested by nationally recognized testing laboratories. Some locations that we know we currently have with these devices are listed here: Crystal, Hilly, Sunrise Towers, Holland Homes, University Place Apartments. And 4 out of the 5 listed here, we know we've had at least one activation at these locations. They are located, at other locations throughout the city. Somebody may have them in their home, or there may be apartment complexes or what have you that have installed them that we're not aware of. But these are locations that we know of. And any fire that we've been on where they have discharged, we've only had minimum damage. This is a video demonstration of how they work.
AutoOut is an automatic fire suppression device designed specifically to fight grease fires in residential kitchens. With AutoOut, you get maintenance-free 24-hour protection, plus the peace of mind from knowing your property and those inside are safer. It only takes a second for a grease fire to ignite, and each year, hundreds of people are hurt while trying to fight these fires themselves. AutoOut helps prevent unnecessary injuries and property damage in one easy step. Auto-Out canisters magnetically mount to the underside of any vent hood without the need for tools. Each unit protects 2 burners and works in a variety of vent hood and stovetop configurations, and since they don't require batteries, they're completely maintenance-free. Here's how it works. When the flames reach the bottom of the Auto-Out canister, the unit automatically opens to release a safe, non-toxic powder, which smothers the fire in the pan. This powder can easily be cleaned up using only wet towels, and because Auto-Out is activated by flame instead of heat or smoke, it won't accidentally discharge under normal cooking conditions. This proven technology has already been used to extinguish thousands of actual fires. Each unit has a 6-year service life and is made right here in the USA. So if you'd like to learn more about how Auto-Out can protect you, your residence, and your investment property.
Auto-Out is just one of the manufacturers. You also have Stovetop, Firestop that manufactures these devices also, so we're not promoting either company. We've seen both these installed at different locations and they both work pretty much exactly the same. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have any local vendors that carry these. We've talked to places like some of the big box stores about having these where people can easily purchase them. We haven't had any real luck with that yet. So currently, if you wanted to order one, you can go to autoout.com or stovetopfirestop.com to order these directly for your home. And if you need any assistance with them, if you do order them and need assistance from the fire department on having them installed or how they work, you can give us a call at 773-7900 and we'll be glad to help you with it. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Today I just want to talk to you a little bit about swimming safety. We're coming up on our season where our swimming pools are going to be open, our local pools. Those will actually take place beginning Memorial Day weekend. We will have 3 of our city pools open. That will be Bolton, Kimberly Park, and Parkland. Those will be open on the weekends only up until June 13th when all of our pools will be open. So we just want to take this time to remind you about some swimming safety. Just want to give you one statistic. Drowning is the #1 injury-related cause of death for children ages 1 through 4. So we do want to emphasize the importance of swimming safety, especially giving your kids swim lessons. And we do offer those free of charge with the City Recreation and Parks Department. If you will just check with the swimming pool in your area for those schedules. Just want to make sure that we're educating our children on the importance of swimming safety. Adult supervision is vital in this case to make sure that your kids are not going out alone, whether they're with an adult or if they're older children, to make sure that they're swimming with a partner. And if you're going to have home pools, we want to stress the importance of having fencing around your pool, and those should be at least 4-sided fencing that's at least 4 feet high. We recommend that you have self-latching gates to prevent any injury from children going into those pools alone. Also, we want to emphasize the importance of teaching your kids not to swim near the drains or to play near the drains because of the suction that can cause injury to them. And if you're going to have home pools installed, make sure that you're using the anti-entrapment drain covers and also the safety vacuum release system that will automatically release the suction and shut down the pool pump in the event that any entrapment should incur. And that's all I want to talk about today. If there are any questions.
Good morning. I'm Chief Roundtree, Winston-Salem Police Department. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank all the men and women of the Winston-Salem Police Department for their hard work and dedicated service to the citizens of Winston-Salem. You may notice that all the police officers in the room are wearing black bands. Well, this is National Law Enforcement Week. The week of May the 10th through May the 16th has been set aside in observance for National Police Week. In 1962, President Robert F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May the 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week, which includes May the 15th, is National Police Week. This was a joint resolution that was signed by Congress in 1962 to establish National Police Week. Since May the 19th, 1895, there have been 18 Winston-Salem police officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Let us all pause for a moment as we honor these officers and read the Winston-Salem roll call.
Patrolman Michael Mordecai Vickers, end of watch, May 19th, 1895. Cause of death, gunfire. Patrolman Thomas Garland Anderson, end of watch, August 15th, 1927. Cause of death, motorcycle accident. Sergeant Leland Glenn Teague, end of watch, December 26th, 1927. Cause of death, gunfire. Detective W.G. Willard, end of watch, November 1st, 1938. Cause of death, gunfire. Patrolman John Marsden Sampson, end of watch, December 8th, 1940. Cause of death, vehicular pursuit. Patrolman Gurney L. Royal, end of watch, August 1st, 1941. Cause of death, gunfire. Patrolman Grover Cleveland Haley Jr., end of watch, November 28th, 1945. Cause of death, motorcycle accident. Patrolman John Franklin Wimbish, end of watch, November 1st, 1952. Cause of death, vehicular pursuit. Patrolman Al Charles Kennard, end of watch, September 9th, 1961. Cause of death, motorcycle accident. Police Officer Donald W. Allred, end of watch, January 3rd, 1983. Cause of death, struck by vehicle. Lieutenant Aaron Jerome Tice, end of watch, June 26, 1992. Cause of death, vehicular assault. Police Officer Michael Ray Jennings, end of watch, January 29, 1993. Cause of death, automobile accident. Senior Police Officer Bobby Farrell Bean, end of watch, April 23, 1993. Cause of death, gunfire. Police Officer Robert Butrego, end of watch, January 15, 1994. Cause of death, gunfire. Police Officer Stephen Levi Amos II, end of watch, February 28, 1995. Cause of death, gunfire. Sergeant Howard Joseph Pluff, end of watch, February 23, 2007. Cause of death, gunfire. Sergeant Mickey Gray Hutchins, end of watch, October 12, 2009. Cause of death, gunfire. Police Officer Russell Mark Willingham Jr., end of watch, July 30th, 2011. Cause of death, automobile accident.
Thank you. There are several local events honoring and celebrating National Police Week. On Thursday, tomorrow, the Forsyth County Law Enforcement Memorial Service will be held at Triad Baptist Church in Kernersville. This event is open to the public. It's free, so I encourage all citizens of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County to attend. The list of topics that we will discuss today for the rest of our time frame, we'll have telephone scams. We'll have Lieutenant Eric Montgomery. We'll give you a robbery update from Lieutenant Steve Tolley, school safety, Lieutenant Mike Weaver, and summer safety, Captain Chris Louder. We're proud to staff coming. I do want to mention two other items before they come. As you are aware, the police department and NMS Laboratories formed a partnership to provide drug and alcohol testing for the Winston-Salem Police Department. Well, we will have a ribbon cutting celebrating the opening of the lab. That will be on Friday, May the 29th at 9 a.m. It will be at the Beatty Training and Support Center, located on Patterson Avenue. I also wanted to mention downtown crime. There was a concern about crime in the downtown area due to a fight that took place in the early morning hours of April the 19th. Strangely enough, there were several people who videoed this fight and posted it on YouTube and Facebook. And no one called the police. Not one person called the 911 center. All those people standing around and videoing, but nobody called 911. What I wanted to do is inform you that our downtown area is safe. The entire city is safe. Currently, our downtown area we've seen a reduction in crime. Overall crime in downtown is reduced by 19.4%. Our Part 1 violent crime in the downtown area is we're seeing 16.7% reductions, and Part 1 property crime, we're seeing 18.6 reduction in crime. So the entire city, we're showing reductions in crime and also in the core downtown area. So next we'll have Lieutenant Eric Montgomery to come forward just to speak about scams.
Good morning. I want to talk about avoiding, give you some tips about how to avoid being victims of fraud and scams. Scam artists in the U.S. defraud millions of people each year. They use telephone, email, postal mail, and the internet to trick you into sending money or giving out personal information. And we strongly recommend you follow these steps to prevent identity theft or scams. Don't respond to phone calls, emails, or text messages that ask for your personal information or financial information. You should also not confirm this type of information. If you're concerned about your account status with the business, call the number they provide on your statement or on the back of your credit card. Don't deposit checks from someone you don't know. If you deposit a bad or fake check, the banks may make funds from deposited checks available within days, but uncovering a fake check can sometimes take weeks. You will probably be responsible for paying the bank back. Don't send money or pay fines to callers claiming to be the Internal Revenue Service. Scam artists may call unexpectedly, claiming to be from the IRS with aggressive threats, such as police arrest, deportation, license revocation, and other things if you don't pay immediately. The IRS will usually contact taxpayers by mail instead of a phone call. Scammers are able to alter caller ID numbers to make it look like the IRS is calling. Don't send money or pay fines to callers claiming that you've missed jury duty. These scam artists may also call unexpectedly, claiming to be employees of the courts or law enforcement officials with aggressive threats, such as police arrest if you don't pay fines immediately. You may contact your local courts or law enforcement to verify such calls. Your local law enforcement will not call you to collect money. Be aware of persons calling and threatening to turn off your electricity unless you make immediate payment. You should contact Duke Energy with the information provided on your bill or statement to verify these calls. Don't be afraid to hang up or end a call that make you uncomfortable with. You should never be pressured into making an immediate decision or purchase. Be wary of contractors that contact you by phone or door to door looking for work. When you need work done around your home, use the references of friends or co-workers. Don't pay for the job until the work is done. One of the most common methods of payments that scammers request is wire money transfers. Wiring money is like sending cash. The sender has no protection against loss. Con artists often insist that people wire money because it's very difficult to reverse a transaction or trace the money. Sending money with a prepaid credit card is also like sending cash. It offers no protection against loss. A common scam seen in the past has often involved driveway paving crews. This is typical for this time of year for these type of scams to begin. These scams typically involve a paving contractor soliciting work at a home, telling the resident they finished a nearby project and have leftover asphalt, and will give the resident a deal. The contractor would then put down old asphalt shavings removed from existing roads, ground up, sold for pennies by legitimate road crews. After a couple of weeks, the driveway then crumbles away, and the resident is out of thousands of dollars. Anyone falling victim or prey to frauds or scams may report these incidents to the police department by calling 773-7700. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. My name is Steve Tolley, and I'm a lieutenant with the Criminal Investigations Division here with the Winston-Salem Police Department. Chief Roundtree has asked me to provide some information to highlight some fairly significant armed robbery arrests based on some events that occurred here within the last month to the month and a half. The first arrest and investigation I'd like to highlight very briefly for you would be the arrest of 24-year-old Willie Lee Taylor. On March the 29th, a suspect entered the McDonald's at 780 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and confronted both an employee of the business and a customer at the business with a firearm. An undisclosed amount of money was taken during that robbery, and fortunately no injuries occurred. Mr. Taylor has been charged with that robbery and is currently incarcerated. I can tell you Mr. Taylor's got an extensive criminal arrest history with his agency and has served a prior prison sentence for robberies. So we anticipate working closely both with the State District Attorney's Office and potentially with some federal prosecutors in the prosecution of this particular crime. The next case that I'd like to highlight for you is actually a series of business robberies that occurred here in Winston-Salem. In the course of an 11-day period, we had 5 business robberies occur that had a similar modus of operandi. Detectives started the investigation into those incidents based on the first incident, which occurred on April the 17th. One of the concerns we had with these series of robberies was these robberies were somewhat more violent than what we generally experience in this area. Of the 5 business robberies, firearms were discharged in 3 of them, and 2 different individuals were injured in 2 of the robberies. During the first robbery, multiple suspects entered a business located in the 5,000 block of Walkertown Road. During that particular robbery, a clerk was shot when the clerk was not able to open the safe. Shortly after that, the following day, on April 18th, the Dollar General at 3150 New Walkertown Road was the victim of a robbery. During that particular robbery, a female employee of the business was assaulted both by being punched and being struck by a firearm, and a weapon was discharged during that robbery as well. Fortunately, her injuries were relatively minor. The next event that occurred was April the 25th and occurred at the Citgo located at 3890 North Glen Avenue. In that particular incident, multiple suspects entered the business, confronted the employee with a firearm, and took proceeds from the register of that business before fleeing. 2 days later, on April the 27th, an attempted robbery occurred at the Akron Drive at 540 Akron Drive at the Recon Latino store. Multiple suspects entered that business and confronted the clerk, but those with firearms. Those suspects fled before they could successfully complete that robbery because the clerk armed himself and confronted the suspects. And the final incident that occurred was April the 28th at 2121 West Clemensville Road, which is the Circle K Food Mart. Multiple suspects entered that business and robbed it, discharged a weapon while they were fleeing that event. Luckily, no injuries occurred during that particular case. Detectives were able, in investigating these matters, to determine that each of these robberies were the result of a group of young men that were acting in concert together to facilitate the robberies, rotating, going in and actually doing the business robbery, and acting as lookouts for those doing the robberies, and acting as the driver of the getaway vehicles. We charged 21-year-old Deshaun Aiken, 18-year-old Dexter Dwayne Hodges, 23-year-old Corey Little, 19-year-old Shaquan Henry Moore, 22-year-old Bryant Renee Narcisse, and 18-year-old Trevon Ross with multiple counts of armed robbery or attempted armed robbery or accessory before or after the fact armed robbery. Some of these young men do have prior criminal histories as well, and this is a particular case where we will be working closely with state and federal prosecutors on this case as well. Are there any questions?
You know how these guys ended up affiliating with each other? Is there any connection to them?
The investigation indicates that the gentlemen knew each other. Some of them lived close to each other. Some of them had attended school together and things like that. So they were associates of each other.
Nothing organized beyond this local group that you know of?
No, sir. Now, I will tell you that we do believe this group is responsible for some robberies in surrounding jurisdictions, and we are working closely with those law enforcement agencies as well. So we do believe they went outside of our city limits also.
And have you tracked robberies this year as a trend compared to years past?
Yes, sir. And I will tell you, these are fairly high profile. I don't want to give the appearance that the robberies are up. Our data indicates right now we're right along the line where we were last year. The only difference is it's garnered some more attention because it's fairly unusual for this larger group to operate. And again, they were a fairly violent group. But statistically, we're in line with where we were last year. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Something unrelated to this.
Yes, sir.
Is there any update to the 14-year-old from Monday?
I don't have a lot of update for you. I can tell you, I anticipate in the next couple hours I'm going to have information that I can release regarding the 14-year-old's condition, but that's going to be a couple hours before I can release that. It's very early in that investigation, so I'm limited on the information I can release. Detectives are working closely with the family in that investigation, and we're attempting to determine if it was a self-inflicted wound, and if it was self-inflicted, whether it was purposeful or accidental.
Either way, do you anticipate any charges being filed?
This is what I'd say. At this stage, it's too early for me to make that determination. One of the folks we're dealing with is a 16-year-old brother, the 14-year-old victim, and so we're having to go about the process of interviewing that young man and putting the pieces of this puzzle together very slowly because he's the one that found his 14-year-old brother. So it's too early to make a determination on that. I can tell you we're not seeking anybody outside the home in any way related to it.
But you don't think that the brother, the 16-year-old brother, was with the 14-year-old when he was actually shot?
He was in the home when the incident occurred. He was inside the home when it occurred.
Were you able to determine where the gun came from?
That's one of the things we're looking into, is we do know who had ownership of the gun. I'm not going to release that at this time, but we do know who had ownership of it. One of the things we're looking to is how they acquired the firearm.
And then going to the homicide from Sunday, the arrest you guys made yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate making any other arrests in that, or is that just the one?
That is still a very active investigation, and I will tell you that we don't believe that the person that we arrested yesterday was acting alone. So that's, we do have other folks we're looking at, yes. Any other questions? Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Mike Weaver with the school resource officers.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning. My name is Mike Weaver. I'm a lieutenant with the Educational Service Unit, which is under the Investigative Services Bureau of the Winston-Salem Police Department. My topics can be school safety, and I'm sure when I say school safety, the first reaction of most people are going to say, well, school's getting ready to end. I fully acknowledge that and respect that, but we need to be mindful that school safety is a year-round topic that we all need to be mindful of. The last day of school for Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools is June the 12th. Graduation for the majority of the schools will be on June the 6th. And I would encourage parents to review the material that's going to be given to them, released by the school system, outlining the graduation ceremonies on June 6th. Most of these events will take place at the Coliseum and the Coliseum Annex, and they'll provide detailed information as far as where you need to park, what time the graduations are scheduled for, and any items of interest. As stated earlier, the Winston-Salem Police Department has entered into a very effective partnership with the school system of Forsyth County. We do this by providing a physical presence in the form of police officers at schools and a programming aspect of it. The common goal of both these entities, whether it's a physical presence or programming, is to provide a positive school climate and a safe learning environment for the students attending schools. Although we take on the most visible aspect of providing school safety is really responsibility of everybody in the community. It doesn't matter if you're a law enforcement officer, school administrator, a student, a parent, or a concerned citizen. It all goes back to the phrase we've all heard recently in the media: you see something, say something. That supports what Chief Roundtree said earlier about what happened downtown. A lot of people viewed what happened downtown, they recorded it, but they didn't say anything. In order to enhance school safety, we need people to say something when they see something. The Educational Service Unit has two elements, as I have referred to. One is the SROs, that's the school resource officers. We monitor and staff 20 schools throughout the county, throughout Winston-Salem, 8 high schools and 12 middle schools. I'm sure when parents drop off their students at schools, you'll see the police officer there. They're known as the SRO. Their purpose is to provide a physical security presence, form and maintain relationships with the students that attend the school, become a mentor if needed. They can also make appropriate referrals if a need is identified by the student or the family. And another responsibility is to gauge the school and conduct threat assessments. This will help emergency responders in whatever form or fashion, whether it's police or fire department, EMS, to respond quickly and efficiently to a school in the case of an emergency. The other segment of the Educational Service Unit is the Super Kids program. The Super Kids program staffs 43 elementary schools throughout Forsyth County. They are the programming element of the Educational Service Unit. They provide programs to kindergarten, second graders, and fifth graders. Topics included are bullying, peer pressure, respect for others, and overall positive decision-making skills. We do this to hopefully have a long-term impact throughout their school years. As stated earlier, school safety is something that needs to go year-round. School's getting ready to end, but that presents a whole separate set of challenges to children not in school. They may have some anxiety about going to another grade, another school. During the summer months, they're going to be meeting friends, associating with others they may not usually encounter, and they may be exposed to some stuff that they're not used to. I was talking to one of my colleagues this morning about school safety tips, and the thing that was said to me was as simple as it gets: ask questions, okay? As parents, teachers, law enforcement, and as a father myself, if you don't know what something is, ask questions. These students now are facing challenges that we didn't face as we were growing up. Social media, cell phones, text terms, gaming, things like that. If you don't know what it is, ask questions. That's the only way we can learn. And again, it supports the phrase, if you see something, say something. Some of the tips I'd like to give those watching. Cell phones. A lot of kids have cell phones at schools. If you haven't activated the tracking device, get that done, because kids have cell phones lost or stolen all the time. And if you're like me and you don't know how to do it, get your kid to do it. That's something I'm not ashamed to say. These kids are very smart when it comes to technology, and it'll prevent loss and help recover some of the items. Social media, be nosy. See what's going on Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff. Again, if you see something you don't know what it is, ask questions. And if it's something that needs to be reported, please, we encourage you to notify law enforcement. If you're not comfortable notifying law enforcement, contact the school administrators, the teachers, because we do have an effective partnership, and we are communicating because we have the same goal, which is to provide a safe learning environment. In conclusion, what I'd like to say, tragically, history has shown that the possibility of an unwanted event taking place at a school or involving students does exist. However, if we can all work together, whether it's law enforcement capacity, school administrators, parents, students, if we all work together, we can reduce the probability of one of these things happening. And that's what the overall goal is. Again, if you see something, say something. If you develop information that you feel is something we need to look into, I'd encourage you, you don't have to give your name, but you can refer to the Crime Stoppers program. That number is 727-2800, or you can use the Spanish line, which is 728-3904. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
There was that incident at Atkins High School pretty recently.
Correct.
Can you tell me how that came to light? Was that when, did somebody speak up in that incident? Or?
Yes, sir. Somebody did, a concerned person, actually a student, brought that up. And that's exemplifies what I'm trying to say. You know, we don't care how we get it, as long as we get the information in a timely manner so that we can react accordingly. Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Okay, this time I'll turn it over to Captain Chris Louder, who's going to have some summer safety tips.
Good morning. I'm Chris Louder, police captain with the Winston-Salem Police Department, and I serve in the Field Services Bureau, which is the patrol division. Today I'm going to follow up on some of what Lieutenant Weaver talked about, and my focus will be protection of your home, particularly during the summer months, and also just some safety information when you travel, and you can apply these year-round. First and foremost, the appearance of your home being occupied is going to be a deterrent to any break-in occurring. What we mean by that is placing a hold on your mail and newspapers, having a trusted friend, neighbor, relative that can periodically come by and check on your home, make sure items are picked up, flyers that are left, garbage cans placed back where they should be. Know also who has copies of your house keys. Again, you want to have trusted friends and relatives that can access your house, but you don't want to have an abundance of keys that are out there. You also don't want to have keys that are left outside, potentially for your children if they come home after school. You want to make sure you pick those up and have those recovered and don't leave those out while you travel. Those are types of things that potential suspects would look for, flower pots, areas around the front of the house where they could access a key. Some of the things to be mindful of: ensure that all your doors and windows are secured and locked. This includes also the garage door, something we take for granted. A recent conversation I had with one of the local garage door companies, they've recommended going ahead and turning off your garage door. A couple of things that's going to do: that's going to keep the garage door from opening, and also going to protect against some of the devices we see, which are the universal remotes, where someone may try to access your code and enter your home through your garage door. Home security systems are a great deterrent. We don't specifically endorse any type of home security system, although there are a lot of good systems out there, and certainly are going to visually present to any potential person that may want to enter your home that the home is protected. And also, one of the simple things to do is, if you have a home security system, make sure you activate that before you leave. We have investigated cases, break-in cases, to where the homeowner has taken for granted that they have the home security system. However, they haven't followed through and activated the security system before they left, so make sure you do that as well. Installing timers for interior lights and/or television or radio is also a good idea. Again, this is going to give the general appearance that the home is occupied, and if anybody's casing the house or comes by, typically would be a deterrent for them to not enter your home. Covering the garage door windows is also a good idea. That way, if there aren't any vehicles in the garage, it's, again, not going to be obvious that the vehicle is gone. One thing to be mindful of, particularly in this day and age, is be smart about sharing your vacation plans. On social media networks, avoid advertising that you're going to be away. That's just in general. That's information that people don't need to know, whether that's someone coming to your home to do any type of work, or whether you posted that on some type of social network. And also let your friends and family know not to advertise and post your travel plans as well about your trip. Of course, that can always lead to potential issues. Safety information in general when you travel, the biggest thing that we would recommend is planning and preparation. We'd recommend you do research, find out a lot of information about where you're going, travel routes, transportation options, suggested helpful knowledge about the area. Again, this day and age, most of that information can be accessed through the internet. Have an idea of where you're going, what your plans are, and so you're somewhat familiar, particularly in areas that you've never traveled. It's a good idea to provide a trusted friend or family member with an itinerary of your travel plans. That way, in case of an emergency, there's some accountability piece as to where you may be on a particular day, and they have an idea of where you may be in another state or another city, and that way they can get in contact with you if needed. It's helpful when you arrive to get general information from the hotel or lodging staff, to ask some logistical questions about the area. That way, maybe some of the things you don't read about on the internet, they can provide some inside information on some safe routes while you travel. The best option, we would say, is to stay on designated travel areas, whether it's in a vehicle or walking in new areas, and overall avoid taking risks in areas that you are unfamiliar with. It's okay to explore. It's what we would recommend. It's not okay to take risks and to get out in areas that you haven't been advised on, or that may not seem like a good idea. Always, in any case, particularly being out of town, be aware of your surroundings and stay in areas that are well lit. Be mindful of the security of your belongings. You know, sometimes if we're carrying hotel keys, we're carrying cameras, we're carrying different things that may be a clue or maybe an indication to someone who's looking to victimize someone as far as larceny. Safes that are located in hotel rooms are a good option to secure your valuables. And again, as always, avoid carrying large amounts of cash. Be mindful of offers or items that for sale that do not seem legitimate or are too good to be true. There are subjects across the country who may try to take advantage of tourists by selling stolen or counterfeit merchandise. And again, if something tells you that this is probably too good to be true, even around the city of Winston-Salem, the best advice is to not engage in that type of criminal activity, particularly for purchasing items that could be stolen or not legitimate. If you see someone acting suspiciously, kind of as Lieutenant Weaver alluded to, or their behavior concerns you, there's probably a good reason why. You know, if something about that person or something about their behavior is suspicious to you, don't hesitate to contact your local law enforcement agency, whether that's here or in the particular area that you're traveling. Overall, we would want you to enjoy your traveling experience this summer and beyond so you can safely return home to the Triad without experiencing any issues that could potentially be avoided by proper planning and travel coordination. Any questions this morning on any of that I've covered? Thank you. At this time, Chief Roundtree will come back up for a recap of the police department's information and to transfer over to Emergency Management Director Mel Sadler.
Thank you, Captain. Again, that's all that we have for police. One thing that I didn't mention about the downtown area, since it gained so much media attention earlier after the fight, 5 of the 6 subjects involved in the fight have been arrested. They do have a court date of June the 9th. We are still seeking the one black male subject who was involved in the fight, so we ask the public to provide any information on his identity so he can also be arrested. I do have crime stats for the downtown area, and I hope that the media will be as relentless as they were for publishing the fight to put the information out about the crime reductions in the downtown area. Next, we'll have up our emergency manager, Mel Sadler.
Thank you, Chief Roundtree. I'm Mel Sadler, Emergency Management Director for the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And we just wanted to take an opportunity this morning to highlight a few tips for severe weather season, which we're about to enter. There are several items that we want to mention, and we want to make sure everyone realizes that we are at risk for hurricanes and other items. Hurricane Preparedness Week will be November 24th through the 30th of this year. We haven't reached that point yet, but we're going to be distributing some information to the local media, and we hope you will assist us in distributing that information to the public. Also, there will be information regarding hurricane preparedness distributed through the through the social media. We're not close to the coast, the eastern coast, as everybody is aware. However, if we have a hurricane watch, that for a hurricane to come enter the United States through the Gulf Coast, we need to be a little more cognizant of that fact. We're more likely to be struck by a Gulf Coast entering hurricane than we are from an eastern coast entering hurricane. So we want everyone to be aware of that and be prepared for that. We measure the strength of a hurricane with the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. This is kind of interesting. We have a little time usually between the watch and the warning for a hurricane. We have an opportunity to prepare. So obviously, if we're going to have somewhat of a warning, we have an idea of how intense the hurricane is likely to be by measuring with this scale. So if you hear about these categories in relation to a hurricane watch, you need to be paying attention. Obviously, the higher the number, the more catastrophic the consequences may be. Also, annually, we have a few facts about tornadoes. Tornadoes annually strike the United States about 1,200 times. That's a lot of tornado strikes. They typically occur between 3 and 9 p.m. Because of the afternoon atmospheric conditions. And there's only about an average time of 13 minutes between the time of a tornado watch and actual impact on tornado warning. So when you hear of a tornado watch, you need to be paying pretty close attention because you only got 13 minutes in some cases, before we have a strike or an impact from that tornado. Now, I've been throwing that term around, those terms around, watches and warnings. We want to make sure everyone understands what those are. A hurricane watch means that severe weather is possible. Excuse me. A watch rather indicates that severe weather is possible. It could possibly be a hurricane watch, or it could possibly be a tornado watch, or a severe thunderstorm, or whatever. But the point is, the key word to listen to out for there is watch. Conversely, warning means that the weather is occurring right then, or is likely to occur pretty soon because it's been indicated on radar. And a warning means that we need to take some immediate action, whatever that action is based on what the threat is. So when you hear the word warning, that means you need to pay a little well, we recommend you pay a little closer attention to that and take preventive measures, because recognizing that warning means move, do something about this. We recommend that families meet and talk about these two words. You don't have to talk about anything else. Just have a family meeting and talk about, what does a watch mean, what does a warning mean? Those are two important words, and those two words could save your life in some occasions. We also recommend that you acquire tone alert weather radios with battery backup. These are available through a number of electronic stores, and when they are used properly, it could be, again, be another lifesaver. We also recommend that you, if you don't want to do that, you can possibly find an appropriate app in the social media world. So you've got a couple of options there in terms of how you get your warning. Whatever you do, make sure you get your warning. Local media is a good source. It may not be as quickly, it may not be delivered as quickly as some of the other sources, but by the same token, it is a source of information. Okay. We want to make sure everybody realizes, in addition to hurricanes and tornadoes, that we also have a threat of lightning, which causes approximately 55 to 60 fatalities each year, and straight line winds, which can exceed 125 miles per hour, floods, which is the #1 cause of death from natural disasters, flooding. So we want to certainly be aware of that. And of course, we want to be aware of hail, which can cause more than $1 billion in crop and property damage each year. So these are the consequences that we need to be prepared for because of the time of year that we're entering. June, I didn't mention it, but June the 1st through November the 30th is hurricane season. So we're not quite there yet, but we need to be making our preparations for that. Details, I'm going over quickly, but details on this information are available at readyforsight.org if you want further information. We want to recommend that everybody do 3 things. We want to ask you to make a plan. That plan kind of is related to the family meeting that I talked about a few minutes ago. Whatever you're going to do, plan it, organize it, and make sure that everyone in your living unit is aware of what your plan is. We want to ask everybody to make an emergency kit. You've got to make 2 considerations. Are you going to shelter in place, or are you going to evacuate? And that kit ought to be appropriate for both of those situations. And the third is stay informed by means of local media, by social media, whatever you use to get your information. Make sure you're informed. And when you hear a watch information being delivered, you need to be making preparations to find out what the next, when or if there's going to be a warning. Finally, we want to remind all of you to be prepared for your pets, just as you do for yourselves. We want to make sure that those pets have water, food, collar, bedding, leash, toys, whatever it is that you need for your pets. They have become an essential part of our life in most cases, and most people will not evacuate without their pets. We know that. So we want to ask everybody to take the appropriate time to prepare your pets for evacuation or in-place sheltering, just as you do for yourselves. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, we want to thank you very kindly for attending our May public safety briefing for the city of Winston-Salem. Thank you so much.